I still remember the sound of the heart monitor. Beep, 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 slow, steady, like it was counting down to something I wasn't ready for. That was the sound in my hospital room at 7:30 a.m. The same morning my brother was cutting a ribbon at his brand new house. The same morning my mom chose his housewarming party over my life-saving surgery. My name is Aisha. And for 23 years I believed my family loved me the same way they loved my brother Samir. I was wrong. Growing up it was always small things. If Samir got a fever, Mom would cancel everything. If I got a fever, she'd hand me medicine and say, "You're strong, Beta, you'll be fine." If Samir brought home a B, Dad would take him for ice cream to cheer him up. If I brought home an A, Mom would say, "Good. Now help your brother with his homework." I told myself it was normal, that maybe sons were just different to parents, that maybe I was reading too much into it, because deep down I wanted to believe they loved me. I needed to believe it. But what I didn't know that day in the hospital was that I was about to learn the truth. The kind of truth that doesn't just break your heart, it shatters your entire world. It started 3 months before the surgery. The doctors found a hole in my heart, a small one they said, but dangerous. "We can fix it," my surgeon told me. "One procedure, you'll be okay, but we need to do it soon." I was terrified. I was 23 and suddenly facing words like open heart and complications. The first people I called were my parents. Mom's voice was soft on the phone. "Oh, Aisha, don't worry, we'll be there." "Of course we'll be there," Dad said the same. "Your mother and I will both be at the hospital, you won't be alone." I held on to those words. I wrote the surgery date on my calendar and circled it in red. June 12th. Right under it I wrote another date my mom had mentioned. June 12th, Samir's housewarming. At the time I didn't think anything of it. I thought, what a coincidence. I thought, they said they'd be at the hospital. They promised, but promises in my family. They were always a little lighter when they were made to me. And that morning, lying in that cold hospital bed, watching the clock tick toward 8 a.m., my phone stayed silent. The room stayed empty, and I realized, maybe I was never their first choice to begin with, maybe I was never a choice at all. The nurse came in at 7:45, her name was Maria and she had kind eyes. "Honey, are we still waiting for family?" she asked, looking at the empty chairs beside my bed. I tried to smile. "There, running late, traffic probably." My voice sounded small, even to me. She nodded, but I saw the pity in her eyes. She'd seen this before. The patients whose families filled the room with flowers and noise. And then there were patients like me, with 2 empty chairs and a phone that wouldn't ring. At 8:10 they started wheeling me to the OR. My hands were shaking, not just from fear of the surgery but from the fear of being completely alone. I kept thinking, any second now. They'll run through the doors. Mom will grab my hand and say, "I'm sorry we're late, Beta." But the doors never opened. The only hand that held mine was Nurse Maria's. "You're going to be okay," she whispered as the anesthesia started to pull me under. "You're stronger than you know." I woke up 6 hours later. My chest felt like it was on fire, my throat was dry. The first thing I saw was the ceiling. The second thing I saw was my phone on the side table, 1 missed call from my aunt. 0 from Mom, 0 from Dad. Aunt Farah arrived 20 minutes later with soup and tears in her eyes. "I came as soon as I heard, Aisha. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." Where are they?" I asked. My voice was just a whisper. Part of me already knew, but I needed to hear it. I needed someone to say it out loud so I could stop hoping. Aunt Farah looked down at her hands. "The housewarming, Beta, it was today. They couldn't miss it. Samir was expecting them. There were guests. Your mom said she would call you after the cake cutting." After the cake cutting. She chose cake over her daughter's open heart surgery. Something inside me went quiet that day. Not the kind of quiet that brings peace. The kind of quiet that comes after something shatters, like glass, like trust, like every excuse I had ever made for them. For 3 days I stayed in that hospital. Aunt Farah was there every morning. My best friend Sana came after work. My parents, they called on day 2, a 5-minute call. "Beta, how are you feeling?" Mom asked. I could hear music in the background. Laughter. "We're so glad it went well. Samir's house is beautiful, by the way. You should have seen the kitchen." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because what do you say to the woman who taught you to walk when she chooses not to walk into your hospital room? What do you say when you realize your life was less important than a ribbon-cutting ceremony? In those 3 days I cried until I had no tears left. And then, I stopped crying. Because tears were for people who still expected to be loved. I didn't expect anything anymore. But what I didn't know then was that when you stop expecting love from the people who should have given it, you finally make room to give it to yourself. And that's when everything changed. That's when the broken girl in that hospital bed decided she wasn't going to stay broken. I didn't call them for 6 months, not out of anger, out of clarity. I needed to heal, and I couldn't do that with people who treated my pain like an inconvenience. I poured myself into recovery, into physical therapy, into my job, into the people who did show up. Aunt Farah, Sana. Even Nurse Maria, who checked on me every week. I learned that family isn't about blood, it's about who holds your hand when you're scared. Then 8 months after my surgery, my phone rang. It was Dad. His voice was different. Shaky. Aisha, Beta, we need you, it's your mom. She's in the hospital, her heart, Aisha. The doctors say it's serious, she's asking for you. For a long moment I said nothing. I thought of my empty hospital room, of the cake cutting, of the 5-minute phone call. A part of me wanted to say, I'm busy, there's a housewarming I can't miss. The old me would have, the broken me would have, but I wasn't broken anymore. I went to the hospital that night. I walked into her room, and for the first time she was the one in the bed, scared, with tears in her eyes. When she saw me, she started crying. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Aisha, I was wrong. I was so wrong. I sat in the chair beside her, the same kind of chair that had been empty for me. I held her hand. Because revenge isn't about becoming them, it's about showing them what they should have been. She recovered, slowly, and so did we. It's not perfect, it will never be what it should have been, but she shows up now, she calls, she remembers. And I learned the hardest lesson of my life: sometimes the people who should love you the most will shatter you. But you get to decide if you stay in pieces. You get to decide to pick up your own broken parts and build something stronger. Something that doesn't need their permission to be whole. So if you're lying in your own empty room right now, waiting for someone who won't come, stop waiting, get up, heal, because your life was never meant to be less important than someone else's party. You are the main event, always.